Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Visual Aid. Today, we're talking about Thomas Was Alone. This game is a puzzle platformer that came out in 2010, and it follows a set of AIs, and our main character is Thomas, whose first thought is that he's alone. What a heartbreaking first thought to have, to wake up for the first time in your life, and for your first thought to be that you're alone. Fortunately for Thomas, he does meet a friend, or quote-unquote friend, in Chris, who he meets a few levels shortly later. Chris is this little orange square, and he is a menace. Chris doesn't like Thomas because he thinks Thomas is this narcissistic, overconfident guy who just thinks he's better than Chris, just because Chris is insecure because he's short.
Well, who the hell did this Thomas think he was?
We gotta support our short kings though. Chris is pretty cool.
John knew. He knew that this was his chance.
Eventually the two meet John, who is this tall yellow rectangle, and he's kind of like the hero of the game. He really believes that his purpose for existing is to help guide the little guys along and bring them to victory. I don't know whether that's a good mindset to have or a bad one, but John's a pretty cool guy. We gotta love him. Next up is Claire. Claire we first meet as she's falling to her death from this giant AI mountain that's been constructed in the simulation.
So, this was how Claire would die. She knew it would happen eventually.
Claire falls into water and discovers that her superpower is that she can survive in water. Obviously, Thomas and Chris and John, they die in water after first contact. So Claire can actually survive water, and that's basically her superpower. And from this moment onwards, she decides to be a superhero. Each AI seems to represent some sort of disability or struggle. Chris is insecurity.
Great. Another chance for Thomas to jump slightly higher than Chris. How fortunate.
John believes that he's better than everyone else.
This would not do. John needed room to show off his exceptional skills.
Claire believes that she doesn't really have any sort of purpose in this life.
She wasn't meant to be alone. She needed to be where there were rectangles to save.
And then we have Laura. Her ability is that she can basically bounce AIs like a trampoline off of her body. She believes that AIs are just using her without actually caring about who she is and what her goals are.
Laura was pleased this one was behind a wall. Maybe he'd never know what she could do. Maybe they could just have a conversation. Hang out.
Later we do find out though that Laura is being followed around by the main villain of this game, the Pixel Cloud. The Pixel Cloud is basically this giant AI eating machine.
Only the ominous Pixel Cloud ever remained, looking a little bigger and a little less hungry with every disappearing friend.
So while tensions are high between Laura and the rest of the gang, Thomas and the rest of the gang are slowly eaten up one by one by the Pixel Cloud and brought to this whole new dimension where they basically meet the AI rejects, if you will. Thomas first meets James and Sarah, who are two very unique AIs. James is basically just Thomas, except he's inverted. James falls upward instead of downward, so gravity affects him inversely. And then Sarah she's kind of like a shorter little purple version of Thomas, and she has a double jump, which is, in my opinion, the most useful ability in the game. She can reach much higher highs than any of the other characters, and she has definitely the most maneuverability, which is definitely useful in a platformer. Sarah decides to guide Thomas to the Fountain of Wisdom, which is, unbeknownst to Thomas, an internet router, I believe.
Thomas looked at the glowing beam. That list he'd been writing seemed pretty petty now. This was all knowledge, all of it.
Thomas connects to the internet for only 12 seconds, but during this time, Thomas experiences what the real world is like and the beauty within it.
And he had seen everything. He felt there was probably a thing called cake, but that it was a lie.
Thomas believes the world is a beautiful place, and he wants to help the AIs to escape the simulation so that they can experience the real world just as he did through the internet.
Thomas knew they couldn't escape.
Eventually, Thomas is able to reunite with the other AI, and they collectively decide to become the architects of the world. They want to change the simulation so that this world can be better suited to all sorts of AIs with different abilities, different sizes, different shapes. They want to form the world to meet their needs. And as the architects, they eventually reach a portal where they decide to sacrifice themselves to benefit the rest of AI kind and give their abilities to anyone else who might need them. Thomas and the gang, they were innovators. They cared. They had goals. They had ambition. But they gave it all away just for the sake of other AI. So that's only about 3/4 through the game, maybe. I was quite emotionally distraught by this point, honestly. It might be because I had just finished playing Moreira a couple days prior. It definitely had to do with that, honestly. But this game is quite emotional, and it'll definitely make you feel things if you play it for yourself. So we still have 2 more worlds to explore through this simulation. During this last segment of the game, we meet a whole new group of AI, where they finally have access to Thomas and the other architects' abilities so that they can better platform and escape the simulation. There is a new villain here that's introduced named Gray. Gray wants to use the other AI just to benefit his goal, instead of working collectively with them to accomplish all of their goals. It's a simple story, but it's motivating.
Paul cursed Gray. He should never have told him. He had to get to the other AIs of the world, warn them about Gray.
So eventually the AIs Paul, Joe, Sam, and Team Jump catch wind of Gray's morally gray ambitions and decide to set out to stop him. And after one last scenario of levels, Joe and Sam, they've reached the end of the simulation. They reach the point where they can escape. And
they leapt.
They leap to their destination, not knowing where they'll end up, but just having their goals in mind, that they want to be helpers. They want to bring good to the world, just as Thomas and the architects did. After that, who knows? Did they make it? Did they not make it? Did Gray make it? Who knows? Does it really matter, honestly, though? The AI had goals. They went from beings that were simply computer programs to beings with real feelings and ambitions and dreams and goals. And that's really a beautiful thing to see them like slowly gain sentience and slowly become more and more human as the game goes on. It's a truly beautiful experience. So Thomas Was Alone was a beautiful game 10 years ago, and it's just as beautiful a game today. It's a story of disability and forming the world to suit people of all abilities, no matter what needs to be sacrificed along the way. And that's truly heartwarming and beautiful and touching. What a phenomenal experience. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. And while you're at it, try to be nicer to the AI in your life. You never know how they're feeling on the inside, truly. Until next time, I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you later.